I'm very happy to introduce our conversationalist tonight. We have, of course, Ken Layne, who publishes Desert Oracle and hosts its companion radio show and podcast from a haunted old compound in the Great Mojave Wilderness, one of 4 American deserts he has called home. He loves all desert creatures, but especially the local gopher snakes, ravens, coyotes, and antelope ground squirrels. Find out more, if you must, at kenlayne.com and desertoracle.com. Joining Ken in conversation is Heather Havrilesky, an American author, essayist, and humorist. She writes the advice column Ask Polly for New York Magazine. She is the author of Disaster Preparedness, a memoir, the New York Times bestselling advice book, How to Be a Person in the World, and the essay collection, What If This Were Enough? And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and let Ken and Heather take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Heather, you're muted.
Off to a great start.
There
Hi.
we go. I thought that was your way of leaving me in the lurch here.
Yeah, this is all, you're being punked.
Yeah.
This is my new show.
It's a bad show.
It's my new career. So you're in the desert right now, yes?
I am in the what we call the high desert, or the Morongo Basin, the Mojave Desert in San Bernardino County, California.
And are you at the Desert Oracle offices on the main drag in Joshua Tree right now?
I am not, because I closed that office.
You closed it
a year ago.
Oh, during the pandemic, after the pandemic started?
Before the pandemic.
Oh, so you're psychic in addition to a few other things.
Yes. Yeah, we already knew about it. We knew it was in Wuhan and it was spreading. And I live in an area that has become very popular with tourists, over 3 million a year, 3 million humans in a place where about 40,000 live. And I thought that miserable disease is going to be brought by a tourist vector right to my office. And as it stands, every flu season, Megan, who works with me, and I would be, oh boy, I hope we don't get it this year, because you got people coming in from everywhere. So I closed the office and I relocated everything to a secret, secure compound.
It's almost like a Ken Layne form of Brexit is what you did. You cut out all those outsiders. Were they coming to your office in order to sniff around and check out the scene?
Yeah,
they wanted to walk through a little bit and talk to you.
And I made it for that. It's on the highway. It was this cool homesteader cabin, these small cabins that you see out here in the desert. And it was kind of at the east end, like the most rundown part of Joshua Tree, next to like a junkyard and a door shop. If you need a door, use door. And I was in there, and we had interesting things on the walls, and it looked like an old local newspaper office, which it was. And so people come take pictures and everything.
Did you have to, if you saw someone coming, did you have to run and put on your fake beard?
Yeah, I'd have to put on my
take off your
mask,
khaki pants,
right? My button down and my loafers. No, I was just sitting in there, usually not working because it was impossible to work in there.
Oh,
you know this working at home, like if you work and you're looking out a window.
Yeah.
And well, that was it. I had these windows out on the highway. And of course, it's a highway. There's something going by every 0.4 seconds.
It's sort of a storefront. I mean, it was kind of a storefront, right?
It used to be a cigarette store called Gunsmoke.
Oh, nice.
You could get cigarettes, like
so it already had the look.
Yeah, it had the desert look.
So now you're safe from those outsiders, and you're tucked away in an undisclosed location.
Yeah.
Safe from the rabble, and you're going to read a little bit of your book
from
to
the
us
virus,
from the virus.
Yeah.
You're just afraid of the virus, not the people.
No, the people.
You have a little people allergy, though. You're a little bit allergic to people, but we'll talk about that. We can talk about that later.
You don't do campfire stories for 3 hours a night if you don't like being around people and talking to them. Which
have the campfire stories been going on during?
No, because of the fucking virus. The virus. No, but the Ace Hotel in Palm Springs just reopened, and hopefully by the end of spring, maybe we can do stuff again. Yeah. What do you want me to read?
Well, okay.
You want me to read the introduction?
I love the introduction a lot. I love the introduction.
I haven't read that.
I think it's a good little introduction.
All right, I will do it. This is the book. If you haven't seen it, it's Desert Oracle, and it's hardbound, cloth back, like an engineering textbook from the 50s. And that was my goal. I told Sean McDonald, the editor and publisher at MCD Books, who published this. He's like, "What do you want it to look like? We're known for our design." I said, "Make it look like a 50s engineering book."
Very marketable.
Vacuum tubes, 9th edition, 1956. It looks solid, it's like, hopefully it makes you trust it more. Like, there's going to be facts in there.
Well, the yellow, though, is very appealing. You want that yellow.
Yeah. I've said this before, so I'll say it quickly. But the yellow, which came from the magazine, this is Desert Oracle, our periodical. These small publishers throughout the Southwest would publish these local, regional kind of guidebooks, like to off-road trails or old mines or ghost towns or whatever, and they'd print them on colored stock. It was always yellow or orange, and that way, because they printed them in the back, like a black and white press, so they didn't have 4-color. But if you did color stock, it had like the desert look. So that's the reason for that. Within these pages are many mysteries of the desert. Some are cruel and terrible, others sublime, and a persistent few remain inexplicable by our current metrics of understanding. Desert is wilderness stripped bare, and when left alone is creation and perfection. The landscape is vast and visible, the geology raw and exposed. The plants and animals in ideal proportion. Fresh water is generally in limited supply, but that has never stopped life from thriving in lands of little rain. Our own species has always been fond of these harsh and arid places. The first civilizations rose up from desert sands, Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt. The wilderness of antiquity was wild desert, and that's where our philosophers and prophets went to meditate on mountaintops, to abandon society for a while, and sleep under the stars or within limestone caves. There were many river valley civilizations in the North American desert too, before our current mess of outlet malls and cell towers and interstates. The Hohokam in the Salt River Valley beneath modern Phoenix, the ancient Pueblo culture of the Four Corners. The Taos Pueblo is a rare unbroken link to those varied pasts, despite the plastic letters on the gas stations and the same banal television programming beamed or streamed into every home. Northern New Mexico is more or less as it was when Alvarado arrived some 5 centuries ago, and as it had been centuries earlier when the Roman Church was still struggling to Christianize the diverse peoples of Europe. Through a combination of accident and intent, much of the American desert remains mostly intact, mostly wild. The accident was in the claiming of so much American territory by the U.S. federal government in the mid-1800s. Actions taken to prevent competing claims and occupation by Spain, Mexico, France, England, Russia, all of our old imperial rivals. Places with surface water attracted settlers despite the heat and the sandstorms and the scorpions, while the vast walls of mountains and expanses of dry lakes and valleys were spared much permanent development. This was followed by dramatic efforts to preserve and protect these desert ecosystems as national parks and monuments and federally designated wilderness, actions inspired by the nature mystics of American transcendentalism. In the 21st century, conservationists aim to save what they can of entire ecosystems and not just photogenic islands of flora and fauna surrounded by industrial mining and eroded cattle range. Even without the dense forests we associate with the crucial storage of carbon on this planet, wild desert forms an immense carbon sink over a third of our planet's landmass, from the ancient aquifers beneath the parched surface to the vast networks of cryptobiotic crust that bind the desert together. This is a simplified explanation to a complex question. Why is it that so much of the American desert is held in public trust? And it is not intended to negate the intentional horrors visited upon indigenous cultures, the wide-scale extermination of desert species, or the determined efforts today by humanity-hating fanatics to reverse our limited protections of this earthly paradise. When you are in the great desert wilderness, you must carry some understanding of why it's still that way, why it's so contrary to the numbing sprawl of our current civilization. Is the way it is because people spent lifetimes fighting to keep it that way, suffering more defeats than victories, because when you love a place, that is just what you do. I stopped. Are you there?
Is that all you're doing?
Oh, you
You're
want me to do
stopping there?
Yeah, you want me to do it? Was already
Okay,
5
just
minutes.
do me a favor, just read that last. Oh my God, read the last page. Dude.
All right,
It's
I'll
so
read the
good.
last page. Jesus Christ.
You dummy.
But it's not just supposed to be
A revelation in the desert.
Oh, that
It's
part.
available
Right.
in our time.
Yeah.
I love that. And the end is good too.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just trying not to go on forever. If this landscape affects your soul in this matter, you may have no choice but to join the noble and holy effort. We could use the help, whether you become a park ranger. Oh yeah, this is good. This is the pitch.
Yeah, I like this pitch.
Or join the Green New Deal Conservation Corps, or volunteer a couple of times per year to clean up a nature preserve or lead school kids on backcountry hiking trips. You might even need to become an outlaw, a hero. We are not so far away from the old times of adventure, of great deeds. Do not fall into the trap of anxiety and emptiness. There's purpose waiting out here for anyone who comes in honest pursuit of it. A revelation in the desert is available in our time. It may fit a practice or a theology you bring along with your water and walking stick and beer cans and yoga mat, or it may shatter your psyche entirely. Both are worth the effort and worth the trouble, worth going where few others travel, worth leaving behind the dull comforts of tourist resorts and constant connection. Some people see the face of God, whoever she is, blasting light beams into their brains on the desert highway. Some people fall off a boulder and spend days wondering if they'll live or die. It's always one or the other. I have witnessed pure wild joy on a fellow human's face simply because there was no telephone signal available, no electronic map display to show the nearest cluster of coffee and hamburger chains. Freedom, finally. Out here beyond the robotic grip of a civilization in disarray and despair, I promise you will feel human again, if only for a little while. Should this experience of old wonder appeal to you, then you will be back as often as possible, and you may have no choice but to call the desert home. And if it's home, you have no choice but to defend it, because there's nothing more fun than having a purpose in life.
I love that introduction. And I feel like in another era, you might have been a pastor, but a kind of creepy one. No offense.
Thanks, Heather.
Um,
That was my second career choice.
Oh, yeah?
Creepy pastor. Yeah.
When you did the analysis at school in the counselor's office, that's what came up.
career opportunities. I on my Irish side, I come from a long line of Methodist circuit preachers,
Oh,
which I've only discovered in recent years.
oh,
Starting with what the fuck was his name? This guy, one of the Carols in the Carolinas, who hosted John Wesley on his first trip to the Americas.
whoa.
Yeah.
Are you getting into genealogy, or is someone else in your family looking into it, or are you just?
I've always known. No,
You've always known some things.
No, I've known some of this stuff. I got on the thing, I don't know, years ago, to find out some other stuff, because my dad died when I was young. You know, not young. I mean, my dad died when he was 54, but he never retired, and he had all these, this great background that I never got to find out about. So I started poking around.
So I want to ask you, you have a way of writing about the desert that makes me want to go there. And obviously, listening to Desert Oracle Radio has even more of that effect on me and on a lot of people. There's a way that the combination of the music, your voice, the sort of poetic way that the pace of the way that you write, is that all of this, how conscious were you of creating a mood when you set out to start your magazine? Do you call it a magazine?
Yeah, magazine, periodical, whatever.
Periodical. And when you set out to start Desert Oracle Radio, and when you set out to put together the book, did you have in mind the idea that you were going to create in the reader or the listener a feeling of the desert? And what were your conscious thoughts about how you would do that?
Yeah. My goal was to make a kind of layer over the real desert world, which, just because we're in the time we're in, gets kind of made dull and kind of the same as everything on its own. But if you kind of put this overlay on it, that is very much about setting the mood, which in a magazine you do with your materials, your design. I was very conscious of making a very simple design that did not call attention to itself. Of course, it ended up, doing exactly that because of the minimalism of it, but it's not minimalist in a designy way. It's just, it's simple. And I wanted it to be stripped of all the crap. Like, you read something on the internet and there's, boxes popping up, and there's terrible pictures of people like torturing each other with electronic devices, and you can't, you can't, there's no way to escape it. But if you have something like, this, you get to kind of drop into the world. And with the radio show, yeah, if you listen to the first episode, I think we're like 120 episodes in now.
Wow.
4 years. The first one, while I don't think it's as nearly as good production wise or whatever, but all the pieces were there. And then within, I don't know, 20 shows, this guy, Red, Blue, Black, Silver, appears, and he's in Joshua Tree. He's like, I hear your show on the radio. It's on the local radio here. And I'm a musician, and I do all these, like synth and soundscape things. Thank you, Jesus, that worked. And so Red, Blue, Black, Silver there's new tracks on every show, and I mix them like it's a record. So it's just wild. I mean, there's no radio station with a composer. You could be at NPR and be doing a show. Like, I want my own composer. And they'd be like,
do you talk to him about the sound you want for given
we hardly speak. We hardly speak.
Oh.
It's very intuitive.
Oh.
I'll often get tracks from him. He'll send me tracks, and he has named the tracks things that are in the episode I just wrote.
Oh, so you send him the writing and he writes something and then
No. He has no idea.
Oh.
I mean, other than intuitively.
So here that's great. That's crazy.
Yeah, so there's hundreds of tracks now, because there's usually about 2 or 3 new tracks per episode. And they're all in my my media server thing in the studio, and you go through them, and they're all named after desert places and names of desert characters and things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So
if you like everyone, I can only see a couple of people here. Red, Blue, Black, Silver. He's got CDs and records and streaming stuff, and he's on Bandcamp, and now he does the soundtracks to movies too, like UFO documentaries.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Your first chapter of your book is called "Try Not to Die," and it includes alarming details about human beings going out for a day hike. Yeah. And then dying, which shocked me. How common is it that people go out for a day and end up dead in the desert?
It's not common. We have 3 million visitors to Joshua Tree a year, and usually it's no more than 40 or 50,000 a year who die in the desert.
It's a scourge.
We don't. If people knew, they want to come here anymore. So there's probably 3, 4, 5 people a year who die in or around Joshua Tree, like on a day hike.
Are they getting lost on their hikes? Is that, and then they don't have enough water?
You ever seen people trying to figure out how to cross a street, like in a city? There's always like 5 or 6 people. Like, I don't know. So yeah, there's people who go out on a clearly marked circular 1-mile hike, and they manage to wander off and die.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It happens at Amboy Crater in Mojave Trails National Monument almost every summer. Like, there's anywhere between 1 and 2. Often it's a couple. Like the last few, it's been a couple. It's like, let's go take a little walk and look for lizards or whatever, and then they both die.
Why is it that place why is Amboy Crater so dangerous? Is it really hot?
A devil lives in the thing. That's the rumor. A devil lives in the cinder cone. The reality is it's the low Mojave. It's very hot, and and you can go like on a May morning, like, oh, it's beautiful, and then 11 a.m. and you're, what did I do? And often people are just on like a road trip. They're not hikers. They're not in any kind of like basic even shape to walk. Like, you ever go to the doctor and they give you a thing, they're like, do you think it'd be possible for you to walk a mile? I'm like, yeah, is that rare? And they're like, yes. So sometimes some underlying health condition, that's when it strikes, because they get heat sickness and they die from exposure.
In the chapter Scary Stories Around the Campfire, you write, "We are fractured and confused people in this strange century, and most of what once connected us to a place knowledge of the land and the animals, origins of the regional beasts and abominations, shared rituals and traditions, has been lost or taken away. We are strangers in our own land. I'm wondering if you can expound on that. What dimensions of modern life do you think make us so fractured and confused? And what do you see as the remedy for that personally?
To the first question, the connectivity that we have, which is beneficial in many ways, you know, it lets us do these things during our probably periodic pandemics between climate disasters for the rest of our lives. You know, we'll have Zoom. So it has whatever, you know, benefits, but these things also have the effect of homogenizing existence. So if now, even just 20 years ago, say you lived where I lived in, you know, bum F Egypt, out in the high desert where few people went on purpose. It was like where weirdos washed up, you know. This is where LA sheriffs used to let out parolees in Wonder Valley. It's like, this isn't even the same county. But who's going to stop them? They just let them out. There were all these little shacks, like the one that used to be my office. You know, people would wander in there. All right. So it was a different place. You were not connected to the world. These homestead cabins, so many of them that are Airbnbs now and have Netflix and Wi-Fi and everything. And when they were built, there wasn't water. There wasn't electricity. There were no cell phones. We were out of range of most radio and all television, and there was no telephone. So you're out here, you're completely cut off from the rest of the world. Now, in a place like this, which was always a sketchy place, that just kind of makes for a lot of weird loners, you know. But in traditional small towns, villages, smaller cities around the world, what it meant is you had shared connections of food, of culture, of festivals, of religion, of seasonal events, of, you know, whatever. This place has the running of the bulls, you know, over here somebody, you know, makes love to a sea lion every year. You know, you have these traditions and it makes you what you are. It's like the way people adopt TV TV channels in a local town. You know, if you have like local paper, oh, I only watch this, or sports teams. So we have this desire to do that, but when we're all kind of on the same stream, like it always kind of breaks my heart when I look at Twitter or something and I see like 50 people who I know are much smarter than this are all like talking about some dumb TV show. You know,
I'm not that smart. I'm not
did
that
you
smart.
see it? Yeah, you are. You are. You were also a TV critic, so you were allowed to do it. And you don't do it a tenth as much as people who have nothing to do with the TV industry. Yeah. It's like, go take a walk, you know, go beat up some kids, go do something. Get out of the house.
It's, you know, I think what's interesting is that the more that the kind of unconsciousness about it, and you're going to tell us how to fix it in a second. And then we're all going to take notes on that. Well,
the way you fix it is bioregionalism. Bioregionalism is it's probably the one concept, the one idea that kind of solves everything. It solves community. It solves or works towards solving climate change, you know, local manufacture, local industry, local agriculture. You can make tourist industries out of it, as so many places in California have done that surround big population centers. So bioregionalism is just like, it can be as basic as like, oh, I'm from Santa Fe and we eat these chili peppers once a year. That's part, you know, that's bioregionalism. Or like, you know, you being from North Carolina and wanting to eat some terrible salted ham. Like,
and then foisting it on all my friends.
yeah, because it's from
here
it's
in
part-
Los Angeles.
It's like it's part of who you are, So
Terrorizing the populace with my salted ham.
with hams,
It's part of who I am.
hams
Foist-
for freedom.
Foisting hams on people. Speaking of hams, I just saw that on Wikipedia that you sued
We don't
someone
like to bring this up. We don't like to bring
about because they stole your idea of having a talking ham sandwich, give advice.
Nah, we don't want to bring this up.
Please explain. Do we want to explain that to
not really. You can't believe Wikipedia is written by QAnon, and you just don't know what's going to be in it.
I really want to read an advice column written by a talking ham sandwich very much.
Here's what it was. Years ago, I, along with our mutual friend Charlie Hornberger, ran I believe it was the first independent internet news site, like that wasn't associated, a daily newspaper that was only on the internet. I don't know if it's really
a
true.
Daily site. What year was it?
It started in 1996.
That's funny because suck.com, where I worked, also claimed to be the first daily site.
Yeah. And we used to always say, if you call that news.
Well, we didn't call it a
columns.
First. We said we were the.
Anyway, so we done this dumb thing. Suck was very good.
What was the name?
Suck was much better than this thing. It was this.
What was it called again?
It was this tabloid thing. So
it was called Tabloid, right?
Yeah. It was like it was not a parody, but a homage to like very
trashiness.
Newsy, not trashy, the kind of newsy, like mid-century tabloids, which it was just a size. And they were often really good, like the New York Post used to be great. Like if there was a war, they'd have like 4 pages of maps. Look at that. That's where that is, So that was kind of the thing. But of course, like everything, very quickly, or like most things, I've stuck to it pretty well with Desert Oracle, what I intended. But this thing is like after about a year, we're like, I don't know. We got to fill it with something. And so I'd start writing like serials because somebody said, Dickens would publish his stories as serials. And you ought to do that. Like, yeah, but he, had talent for that. But I just write these goofy things and forgot about them. And then like, I don't know, a couple months later, people started contacting me from everywhere. And they're like, your character in that weird science fiction thing you've been writing, they put it in a commercial. So
people were stealing it. And so that's when you hired 5 lawyers and went in with the big guns.
That's right. That's right. No, somebody took it on contingency. We didn't have any money and we got a settlement.
Oh, you won.
We got a settlement. When you get a settlement, nobody wins.
Oh, so
you can't say you won. It's a settlement.
I want to ask you this: with the bioregionalism, does it require a kind of commitment to a place that people have trouble making, basically? Because I think that there's a way that, the internet is almost like this terrible strip mall of a town where we all go and focus on shallow shit and together, and it starts to seem like its own weird currency and language. And it's, I mean, the thing is, if you tunnel into it, you do start feeling like it becomes a kind of a value system where you start to.
No, it's a real place. I don't buy that whole like, Twitter's not real life. It's like, really? Because the last 4 years, about 90% happened only on Twitter. That was real fucking enough, wasn't it?
Do you think that it's, I feel this push and pull about pulling away from virtual spaces and figuring out how to even be grounded in real space anymore. And being grounded in real space actually requires of you a patience with whatever is fucking there, which when you talk about creating a layer over the desert, right?
Yeah.
Like you're talking about putting a filter on things so that you can tune in to the cool shit and the mood
Yes.
that you want, right?
Yes.
And tune out.
Which is a very situationist thing, right? This is what we got. This is where we are.
Yeah.
Let's be at least in charge of our destiny in it. So
Right.
let's know this place. Like the situation is, you know what they called making their own spectacle? They get drunk all day and wander around pointing at buildings. That was it. You know, that was often the spectacle. And it works because you're in your place, you're cognizant of it. You're with a group of people, your people, you know, as degenerate or worthless as they might be, and they're yours and they tolerate you, and you wander around in a place and it's like, this is mine. You know, it's kind of like the way you'd be as a kid in America, and you're younger than me, but I think the era kind of lasted up until the kind of helicopter parent thing. But it's like if you were a teenager in America in the 70s, the 80s, the early 90s, you just go around like a king, you know, and do whatever you wanted. It was so fun. You owned everything. You know, that's my McDonald's. You know, that's my mall.
Yeah, I was like Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
Just wander around doing whatever you want.
And it was, and that is something I think, especially during the pandemic, that we're feeling tremendously, the loss of that, because you just, you know, we're in our place doing this.
Yeah.
And, you know, better than nothing, sure. But one hopes that by summer, you will have a flood of people, you know, going out like, oh, I want to do a community garden. I want to do that. I want to do community theater. You know, I'm going to start stand up in the closed down AMC. Wouldn't that be fun? That was a prediction I made last year. After all the movie chains go out of business, which most of them will, you know, before they open up again, just take them over like squats and like, oh, in this one we play, you know, Dungeons and Dragons with 50 people. In this one, we have stand-up comedy. In this one, we have DSA meetings. And in this one, you know, whatever.
We make love to sea lions.
Yeah. I mean, in that one place.
But see, I come up against this thing about community, right? Because I moved to a community to raise my kids. And on the one hand, it's great. And on the other hand, there are ways that you're just married to a community. Being married to a community and not being able to leave is like, really brings out the commitment phobia in you, right? So wherever you are, do you ever have days where you're like, I wish that Joshua Tree were more like the Joshua Tree that I have kind of created inside my wild mind?
I don't, because that would be impossible, you know? That would be like, I wish, you know, Pappy and Harriet's was like.
Okay. Funny you should mention, sorry to interrupt, but my daughter, who's 14, you know her, knows what Pappy and Harriet's is independently, because it's like an influencer place, like destination. So the tension of these things is just kind of breaks your brain.
But I've never, look, I love being here. I love being close to the Mojave wilderness. It's not far away, but this is still civilization. I intend to spend less and less time in a town in the future. It's a compromise, you know, you got to compromise sometimes. And ideally, I'll go to my little shack up in the Eastern Sierra for 6 months at a time with no cell service. And then, like, you know, spend the other half in some flop house in East Hollywood.
That's a little bit sordid, but okay. I think that it's interesting in your book that you mentioned this, because this tension between community and doing your own thing and being a loner, a lot of the people you describe in your book, philosophers, musicians, artists, cult leaders, Oppenheimer, who created the atom bomb in Los Alamos. They're
Yep.
all kind of, you kind of point out this common thread. They're all seekers who go through some kind of crisis or hit a wall. And you identify with these people. And I wonder if, it's like we're trying to, I don't know if your movement is, it sounds like your movement is away from community, essentially. You've created, in some ways, a big part of the community there, but you see your trajectory as moving away.
I mean, yeah, I always want to move away, especially in August.
In August.
Yeah, that's when I start writing to all of our subscribers in like Iceland and Norway. Yeah, hey, could I come there for a while?
And you corresponded with Edward Abbey.
I did.
Tell me about that.
Look at this. I don't really do this, but I've had this picture for a long time.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's Edward Abbey. I got this picture when I worked at a newspaper when his last novel came out, and the book section editor walked over and threw it on the desk and said, "Here's that Ed Abbey you like." I said, "Oh, you're running something?" She's like, "No." He wasn't very popular, but and he had a lot of faults. He would have gotten canceled pretty quickly if he existed now. But of course, he would have been different now because we all have to adopt to our times and our culture as much as we might want to upset things.
Yeah.
Like Joseph Campbell said a funny thing about the Beatles, in one of his books. He said, had the Beatles come out 10 years or same people, same genius, same talent, if they'd come out 10 years earlier or 10 years later, nothing. Nobody would ever paid any attention to them. It's you got to fit into the time you're in. So anyway,
do you think there's a way though that if you think too much about how you fit in or don't fit in, you kind of fuck yourself, like, because there's a way that you certainly just like show up and do, you put your passions out there and you sort of, I don't see you as like trying to take the temperature of the market that carefully.
And I certainly don't try to in a cynical way, but if you're not aware of what's on people's minds, if you're not in the right place in the collective consciousness, your work's not going to resonate, and I don't need or desire an enormous audience, but you want an audience of people who get what you're doing, because God knows nobody around you ever will. I mean, is like when you see like actors marry each other, like most people think, oh, why do they have to marry each other? Because nobody else would tolerate people like that. Any kind of, you see the same thing with like, ER doctors. Who else is going to marry an ER doctor? Right? Like,
oh my God.
What? You don't come home for 6 days at a time? I guess a fireman. You could be like a firewoman or a fireman. Anyway.
Okay, so
yeah,
can
I pay attention. I mean, I was aware that magazines were all going broke.
Yeah.
When I started a magazine, I was aware of that. I was aware that like most people under 40 don't know how to operate even a car radio. I was aware of that before I started a radio show. But I thought that these things the mediums had use and charm left in them if dealt with in a way that was appropriate for where we are. Anyway.
We are almost at 7:50, you guys.
Oh, good God.
Okay. That happened so quickly. I'm sorry.
What was your finish your thought?
Aliens. All I want to know is this thing with the cows, cut up cows. Other people will probably have other alien questions, and we need to talk about aliens a little bit more than we have.
I know. We should do like an hour on
just stay late to just hear about aliens. But the cut up cows, how do you feel about the sliced up, carefully butchered?
I've been I covered my first livestock mutilations in rural San Diego County in the late 1980s.
Oh,
So I've been following this stuff for a long time, and then it became a personal interest. Here's the quickest way to answer that question that'll tell you what I think about it.
okay.
Yeats edited a book on Irish fairy folklore, the Irish fairy faith, and which is still available. It's one of like the great books, of culture or whatever. And there are multiple instances of cattle being taken or mutilated in fairy lore. So this goes back.
Wow.
Yeah. So no, I don't think E.T. is coming in his hot rod to molest a cow. But the events are real. Biggest manhunt in Colorado history. Never got a single suspect in the 1970s. 6 counties. So is real and has been with us a long time.
Huh. Okay.
All right.
Another mystery. Okay, so now are we going to take questions,
Yes.
Elena? Do you think?
Yes, so people are chatting in the chat box, but nobody's asked a question. So at this point, if anybody would like to ask a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask it yourself. We just, again, ask that once you're done asking the question, you mute yourself again so we don't get any background noise that might take away from the answer. So if anybody wants to go for it, now's your time. Everybody's always slow to start. Nobody has any thoughts about aliens mutilating cows, really? I don't believe that.
All right. Do we have any on chat?
Just a lot of comments.
Let's see. Shout out to Hollywood.
I mean, I have a question. Does the
Yes.
Hollywood sign really read Holly Boob right now?
You have to ask Heather that.
I have not
Have
driven by the Hollywood sign, but I did see the news of the Holly Boob today. And
there we go. We got a real question. Okay. Okay, Ken, any event in Yucca Valley or Landers or JT soon?
Yes, I'm having a COVID spreading event. So just come on over behind the gas station, and I would love to do events. I can't do events. Events are literally illegal. So, no.
Please don't get COVID, y'all.
But as soon as we do have events, I will let you know on the radio show and everything. And I'm hoping we're going to start up at the Ace Hotel again. Those are super fun and they're free. And we've had like 300 people around a campfire, telling monster stories.
Okay, we got some more. So are people moving out there to live full time, or is it mostly tourists?
Since the pandemic, a lot of our former vacation rentals have been leased for longer term. A lot of people from cities have left, and they come out and they hide. You don't really see them. And this happens, there's been New York Times stories about the New Yorkers who come into the surrounding country, and they kind of lay low because people get annoyed. So right now we have a lot of full timers, but you don't see them.
Thank you. And a question from Lauren: where do you stand on psychedelic tourism?
Oh, I'm in favor. Lots of people do it, and we've got shamans and stuff. I advise you to set it up beforehand, because it's definitely a not the majority activity. So you don't want to be wandering into Walmart at 3 a.m., screaming about the biblically accurate angel that's been following you.
Good advice. Bruce is curious, are you going to have Eric Davis on again?
I hope to have Eric Davis on again. soon. And I think before that, Eric has asked me to do his podcast. He's going to be returning to some kind of podcasting, and that was good. I thought that was going to be last month, but hopefully it'll be in the next month or so. He went on hiatus after writing his High Weirdness book, which was a big success and came out in paperback too. And he's like, I got to take a break. I've been doing it 10 years. But I will have him back on. If you have anything specifically you'd like us to deal with, let me know, here or otherwise.
Miles is wondering, is there any chance you'll visit them at Mount Rainier for alien viewing when it is safe to gather?
I'll go anywhere, any length drive, anything, once I can leave. And I love Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is a very famous place in UFO lore. It was the location of Kenneth Arnold's 1947 sighting of the 9 boomerang-shaped objects, which skipped across the sky like they were, in a different dimension. And that's where flying saucers started. So yes, I would love to. Write to me, please.
So Antonio says he wants to send you a postcard from Monterrey, Mexico. Would you be willing to share your new studio's address?
I can't because we don't have mail here, but I have a P.O. box, which is P.O. Box 1735, Joshua Tree, California, 92252. And it's on the website, at the bottom of the website too, P.O. Box 1735.
And I just put it in the chat box as well.
Oh, thank you.
Who missed it. Roxanne wants to know who Brendan Mays is.
Heather is laughing. Heather, you can.
Sorry.
People are constantly doing this saying Brendan Mays isn't real. He da-da-da-da. Is Brendan real?
Brendan Mays is a real person. He's a real person.
Brendan Mays is Brendan Mays talking on the show an accurate representation of talking to Brendan in person?
Yeah. When you talk to Brendan Mays, you think, what's going on with this guy? I've had Brendan Mays at parties, and when people talk to Brendan Mays, what they say is, what the fuck is up with that guy? So similar.
Yes.
It's very entertaining to talk to Brendan Mays, however.
He's real, and he's done. He would come out and do shows sometimes. Like we did a nightclub, like a live radio show in Phoenix, and he did that. He's come to a couple of the Ace Hotel things, but I see him. He was here for the election. He was like, I need to get out of there for the election. And I said, all right, what are we going to do? And he said, we're going to drink whiskey. It's the only way to get through it. So we went and got a bunch of whiskey at Vaughn's. And he lectured the country, as we watched the returns.
So there you go. Real person. Okay. Next question from Yvette is a 3-parter. So
all right.
I'm gonna ask them separately so we don't forget.
Good.
What's your favorite desert? What's your favorite flower in the desert?
Oh, okay.
What's the most endangered plant in the desert near you?
Uh-huh.
And then on a completely different topic, if we can use alien technology to help their recovery. I guess not totally different. That's in line.
All related. My favorite desert flower is where's the camera? Right
That's
there.
Good. That's good.
This is a desert dandelion, and it's common. It grows in disturbed sand. It is so beautiful. They grow in these big bunches. They used to grow in this filthy, like broken glass cigarette butt dirt outside my office on the highway, and I just love them. They just bring beauty to the most common places here. You don't have to go hiking to look for them. every like scraped dirty lot after the rain is just covered in desert dandelions. Um, endangered plants, we have a ton of endangered plants, but this is the exciting thing. California has moved to make the Joshua tree a protected species, and so that means, you know, our iconic Joshua tree, our specific yucca that only grows in the Mojave Desert, is the Mojave Desert indicator species, over like 2,500 feet elevation. That this very slow growing tree is now has protection, so you can't go mow them down with bulldozers anymore to, you know, build your spec houses. So that's good. We also lost probably close to 1 million Joshua trees during wildfire season in Mojave National Preserve in August, September. I was out there recently, and it's like, well, that's what it looks like when all the Joshua trees burn. So they need to be. Third, alien. I'm not really a alien conspiracy believer. I'm sorry. But we did get Tang and Velcro from our own space program, so maybe those will help us.
Thank you. Lauren has two questions. Have you considered starting a cult? And follow-up question, is this already a cult?
Welcome.
Now that you all mentioned it, you just need to drink the nectar. A listener sent me this, by the way. It's a plant. It's a cactus planter. It's very cute. Just got it right there. I would rather. I don't think cults are terribly helpful. You know, fun at the time. You can, you know, make history or whatever, but I don't think, and I like things that have cult audiences. I think that's a healthy kind of cult, right? Like, you know, you like Tom Waits or something. That's kind of a cult audience. Or but as for religious cult, I don't really have the I don't know. Whatever it is that you need. I guess
Don't
a desire.
be modest. Don't be
No.
modest.
I'm saying if you have a desire to start a cult, that's probably a lot of it. Like, Heather, weren't you going to start a cult? Because you'd write advice
I'm
columns.
always a little tempted to start a cult.
Yeah.
I mean, who isn't? Everybody wants to start a cult. The
don't-
problem is my cult would just be too positive.
Yeah.
And I'll ask Molly, like suicide cult or like some kind of really destructive death cult.
It's like destroyer.
Satanic death cult of Ask Molly. That would be, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd do that.
Look, there are lots of I think cults usually end up having, although some go on to later success, like Christianity or whatever. But like most cults are either small on purpose, like say the Santa Muerta cult, which I love. I find it fascinating. You know, all these small roadside altars all over northern Mexico and southwestern United States, kind of on both sides of the border there. But I think we should all run our own cult. Don't join anybody else's cult.
Okay, so I have two more questions, and I think we'll end it at that. So the first one from Jeff. I'm going to leave this one for the last one. Penultimate question. Why do you have Brendan on the show?
Oh, hang on. Sorry.
Because everybody in this chat thinks that he was made up.
No, I've known Brendan since 1993. He's a bit much at times, but I think we all have people in our lives who are maybe a bit much for regular life, but are great kind of seasoning, you know, on what is often just kind of kind of banality that we're stuck in, you know, and it's something you can always, you know, Brendan's not a good businessman, obviously, because he wouldn't have the time, you know, but he's always doing something. He works, you know, he gets up and works doing God knows what. And in, and in person is Brendan has a way of taking what you think your beliefs are and kind of casually shredding them while kind of hectoring you in the process, but like you're in on it. And I just think we all could use more people who make really solid arguments for why everything we're doing is a fraud. He's a good corrective.
That's why I know you.
Thank you, Heather. I really appreciate that.
Okay, so we're gonna end with Jeff's question. Which desert is your favorite?
Oh. Well, I guess this is finally a hard one. I don't know. I mean, I've been in the Mojave the longest. I've been running around the Mojave since I was a kid, like with a learner's permit, you know, 100 years ago, illegally driving all over the place. You're only supposed to like go to work and church or something. And I keep finding things that are fantastic about it. I tend to mostly love the parts that are way out from the place where most people come, because I mean, it's better, you know, with less people and strange things that aren't crowded. I've also lived in the Great Basin a lot, and I really love the weather. I love the cold winters and a little bit of snow. And Mojave, you know, is not a great place to be in July and August, unless you don't like yourself, and because it's just like, what do you do? You make do, of course. I've been here for like, I don't know, 13 years, just right here, and I still go walk the dog when it's 105 degrees. Wait till the sun goes down, and then you got to watch out you don't step on the rattlesnakes and everything. So I don't know. Maybe my favorite part is probably the transition zone between the Great Basin Desert and the Mojave, where it's a little cooler year round and a little more variety, you know, that kind of like Eastern Sierra era around the Alabama hills where the Joshua trees fade into that big mountain Great Basin sage. They're all good. Save them all.
Thank you, Ken. What a great note to end on. So thank you all so much for joining us. I dropped the link to purchase Ken's book in the chat or visit napabookbind.com. Thank you to Heather and to Ken for joining us. Any last words before we sign off for the evening?
Heather, you go first.
All I want is to just drive out to the desert every single fucking day. And I'm about to buy a hut like down the street from your compound, and I'll be stalking you, Ken, because
good.
I just need a change of scenery. I need a new region to practice bioregionalism in.
That's right. Well, it's all part of the thing. This, by the way, is one of Heather's books.
Oh my God.
That I just grabbed off the thing here. And the column is Ask Polly in New York Magazine. And if you don't read it, is really good. And she'll send you weird emails too.
The newsletter is Ask Molly. That's probably more Desert Oracle demographic.
I don't know. We got a lot of theologians here.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
But thank you, Napa Book Mine, for hosting us. I appreciate this very much. Thanks all of you for coming on here and looking at a Zoom after work. I think that's a wonderful thing. And I got you in Brady Bunch view, so I'm looking at you now.
And at some
Hi
point,
there.
we'll just all be around a campfire together.
God, I cannot wait. Yeah. So thank you for reading the book, the magazine, listening to the show thing. I sure love doing it because I would have lost my mind in the last year not leaving the house. So thanks for giving me something to do.
I think we can all appreciate that sentiment. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening wherever you are. And we hope to be able to see some of you in person in the not too distant future. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.